Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday, where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of Good for Bitcoin. The other day, Kate and I sat down with Andriy Velykyy. He is the co-founder of Allbridge. Allbridge recently rolled out first-class support for stacks on their platform. Now allows you to bridge USDC and USDT from 16 other chains to and from stacks. We also discussed the aftermath of the recent KelpDAO hack and what Andriy thinks about decentralization, trust, and much more. It's a really good convo. Hope you enjoy it, and we will see you on Friday.
So let's get into it. So Allbridge is one of the largest cross-chain swap providers in the crypto ecosystem, supporting stablecoin swaps, over a dozen chains, and we are now fully integrating in the Stacks ecosystem. So we have some questions for you. I think we should just jump right into it. I know we'll get into the announcements later this week, but can you just start by giving us a quick rundown on the history of Allbridge? We would love to hear some context.
Sure, absolutely. We started Allbridge together with my business partner, Yuri, roughly 5 years ago. Before that, we've been in crypto for quite some time. I think for me, it's been since 2015. For Yuri, it's been since 2016, 17. I mostly involved in biz dev, and he's handling all the technical stuff. When we saw the opportunity on the market for the bridges back in the days, we understood that there is clear lack of bridges that connect EVM chains to non-EVM. So this is how we started Allbridge, and the idea we had in mind, hence the name Allbridge, that we can connect all the chains, not just some specific ones here and there, like the other bridges do. And last but not least, I would like to mention here that the integration we're going to talk about today, it is actually our second integration with Stacks. So we've been with you for quite some time and with the community. So happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting. Real pleasure.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Andriy, for joining us. I just checked your website, and I saw that it looks like you recently passed a milestone, and you have over 1 million unique wallets that have engaged with Allbridge, and it looks like you're also very close to 2 million total on-chain transfers. So those are some pretty big numbers. So congrats on all the usage there.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, so we already kind of talked about, we're going to get into, the big Stacks news, which I think is what sort of kicked off our conversation. But I wanted to set the stage. We're recording this on, just for context, on April 21st. Over the past few days, there's been a lot of contagion in the ecosystem related to this KelpDAO hack. And reports are that there was about $293 million that was taken from their RS ETH, or their restaked ETH token. That's certainly caused a lot of panic. It's affected a lot of other DeFi infrastructure, major lending markets like Aave, just all sorts of stuff out there. And I saw yesterday Arbitrum took emergency action to freeze over 30,000 ETH that they were holding in one of their addresses that got affected. So I'd love to know just generally, how are you holding up? How has Allbridge been holding up this week during this contagion that we're seeing?
Well, because we're in the business for stablecoin transfers, luckily we were not really affected. I myself have Ether, but I did not really participate in those protocols. So it seems that we are on the safe side. The whole market right now, it is a little bit upsetting. it does remind me of 2018 when I think the market was drying up and then the hacks just came on like one after the other. Because this one, the Kelp, it was not the first big one in the recent couple of days or weeks. We just had dripped, right? We've got a number of smaller ones, and it seems that people on the market are becoming desperate. They're looking for quick buck. They're looking to find a way not to grow the market, not to build something beautiful, not to work on the tech, but instead just do a cash grab and escape the crypto, which is sad to be honest. I do believe, though, that this is not the first cycle, this is not the last, and the market will recover and we will proceed and live happily ever after. The issue that you raised about Arbitrum, it is really interesting because we are addressing the Bitcoin community now. Obviously, this is why we are here on this call together. And I really cannot imagine that something like what happened on Arbitrum when without the signature of your private key, your crypto asset is being basically confiscated. I mean, I'm not saying the hackers are good guys. I obviously have sympathies for the protocol that went down and for all the players involved. But I personally do believe in the concept of self-custody. And when blockchain itself takes the money from you, it is bad. You know, it is bad for the whole industry. It sets the bad example. And I sincerely hope that where we work together, we will never ever see that happening, no matter how good the reasons are for doing that. I mean, I can understand both sides, but it just seems that we are moving towards the traditional finance ecosystem, which raises the question why we're in crypto after all, if we're doing things like that. You may cut that or not, up to you.
Yeah, you raised a lot of good points. I think, yeah, certainly with what happened with Drift a week or two ago, and then now, you know, what's happening with KelpDAO, we're seeing also, yeah, a lot of conversation about like centralized versus decentralized, and you know, some of these platforms which people may have thought were, you know, more decentralized than they actually are. And you know, we're seeing kind of the results of, you know, some of the actions that these platforms are taking, and even something like, you know, like Drift, right? Like that the fact that they had the ability to, like, you know, somebody had the ability to take all those funds, maybe speaks to them being maybe slightly more centralized than, you know, people might have thought originally.
But
So yeah, certainly a
Arbitrum,
lot.
the whole chain basically decided to reposition the funds on chain. They changed the state of the chain, which is extreme. I think it is even more extreme than what happened back in the days when Ethereum decided to go back before the DAO hack. And this is how the community ended up with Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, if you remember good old days.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember not last year, 2 years in Nashville, Bitcoin Nashville. I remember meeting somebody that was still building on Ethereum Classic, and they were talking about how great Ethereum Classic was with like proof of work and and everything. So there's still some Ethereum Classic users out there, which is fun. Thank you. Kate, I know you have a bunch of questions, and we gotta dive into all the USDCX news on Stack. So
Yeah,
I'll
for
let you
sure.
take it away.
Well, yeah, just to quickly close on that, I mean, obviously we want to see DeFi flourish, but it's, you know, can be kind of exhausting when things like happen like this. So I think building in a Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem could be a solution to some of this. You know, some of the sentiment on the timeline is really like, how do I explain this to my friends? Like, what's going on? And people are just saying, you don't. Like, we just don't talk about this. We move on. Okay, so yeah, let's get into it. So, Andriy, you work across a lot of ecosystems. I would love to know how important stablecoin infrastructure is to whether you think a DeFi ecosystem will take off or whether it will stall.
I mean, while I'm a big fan of decentralization and obviously centralized stablecoins like USDT and USDC, which is part of the current integration, are probably not the most decentralized entities on the market, to be honest. I hope that Jeremy is not listening to us and doesn't get upset. But at the same time, the thing is that we do need Rails for the whole DeFi ecosystem to expand. It is really hard if you can think about someone commented stacks from Ethereum for that person to understand how to transfer value, like in cross-chain gas tokens. That would be like impossible because it is fluctuating. You've got a price against the dollar, you've got a price against each asset, against each other, and against the dollar. And I think that what stablecoins really do, they make it understandable for people of how much money they're putting in and out. So then people can evaluate the risks and see if that is the opportunity they want to take. Additionally, all the services like borrowing and lending, when people want to put their money into lending markets, it always comes to the fact that in the real world, they would still be bound to dollar or euro or the national currency. So they need a proper means of understanding the value of their asset, even they want to hold to it, and what do they get for the asset, and what they can borrow against that asset, and what they can go and spend in the local grocery store. And it would not be possible with those tables. So maybe in a better world, we would not need them, and we would just be paying with Bitcoin everything, and all the prices at the gas station, for example, would be nominated in satoshis. But we're not living in a perfect world, so we need the stables. And that means that if we want the DeFi to grow, if we want the ecosystem to grow, we do need stables. So I think it is important. I hope that answers the question, or you want to go into any specific angle on that?
Well, we can get into maybe sort of some Stack specifics, because Stacks is now the only Bitcoin layer with a Circle standard USDC. This is USDCX. So, as the bridge operator who's seeing capital flowing in and out of chains, across chains, what does this signal to you?
I think, from my perspective, as being a crypto guy, working in the space for a while, operating a bridge, probably my take here would be that USDC coming, like real USDC, to Stacks means that Bitcoin DeFi is transferring from being an experiment into being the real thing. So it is good news, and it sort of proves that the market is looking for it. It's looking for the rails, it's looking for means that the Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem would not be something exotic. I would maybe go into that a bit later on, but sometimes people feel that Bitcoin ecosystem is in a way separated from what people are playing on, I don't know, Ethereum or Solana or whatever with DeFi. And now it looks like that Bitcoin is, with the help of the Stacks, with the help of the Circle, is part of the whole game, which is, I do believe, which is a good sign.
Right.
Yeah, I think
I've
seen some people talk about they think about it this way, like Bitcoin is sort of like the savings account, and then stablecoins are like the checking account. And Bitcoin is definitely like that store of value, where stablecoins are more like that medium of exchange. And people don't want to spend their Bitcoin, right? They want to save it. So they have maybe a smaller amount of stablecoins that they're using for regular payments. Is that maybe something that you're seeing on your end as well?
I do. I mean, I think that most of my Bitcoins were not being transferred unless for the means of like wallet reorganization for years. So it is just sitting there, which means essentially that by not being part of Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem, my Bitcoins are just, there. They're not doing anything, which sort of limits my opportunity to do something with it, to get some yield, to play with it. If the times are hard, to buy myself pizza with Bitcoin, but by lending stables against my Bitcoin, rather than becoming Laszlo who spent his Bitcoin, right?
Well, I feel like this would be a good time to get into what users can look forward to with this. Obviously this is going to allow people to move pretty seamlessly into Bitcoin DeFi through USDC, USDT. Now that USDC Stacks is available on Allbridge Core. So yeah, what are you excited for people to be able to experience now?
So the thing I'm really excited is that now on Stacks we will have one single officially approved USDC. Because one of the things that I discovered from back in the days when we were running our first version of the bridge and our first integration, I will speak in general. It's not just only related to stacks. It is related to market specifically because there is the thing that we call liquidity fragmentation. So not all of the liquidity is created equal. That means essentially that, for example, we brought USDC from Ethereum into stacks. At the same time, if we would have done the same from Polygon or Solana, essentially due to the nature of mint and burn process, it would be different asset, which would not be interchangeable. So one of the things we decided to drop the older architecture and proceed it to new is that we don't want user confusion and we want the liquidity on chain to be like consolidated so it is deeper. So people have less slippage, it is easier to move funds in and out, to buy the assets, etc., etc. When you're dealing with minted version, which is minted by the bridge, you are exposing yourself to poor risks because then there is breach risk additionally, and you have eventually less liquidity or you need extra instruments that would help you to transit from one bridge liquidity into the other, for example, which is also tricky for the users. So generally, I think it is a good sign, and I do think that the community would benefit from that greatly. They will have more opportunities, it would be more financial effective, and everyone would be happier.
Well, that's a good scenario. All right, as we know, Allbridge Classic is going to be deprecating at the end of this month, so April 30th. And we still have some AEUSDC. I'm happy to never have to say that again. AEUSDC loans on stacks in lending protocols. Is there anything that these users need to know that you think it's important for them to understand?
Oh, okay, first of all, I'll do this part which you can select either to leave here or cut it out.
Sure.
So first of all, I wanted to say that while we do want to deprecate Allbridge Classic, at the same time, we want to care about the users.
Yeah.
So essentially, that means that if we will see that the large chunk of money is still there, it's still being used, that would make us push our plans forward and deprecate it not this month, but for example, next month. I'm not by any means encouraging anyone to keep using the old architecture. I'm saying, guys, please migrate.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to say that in case, for some reason, not everyone does that, then we will have a tricky choice. Either we would need to upset the community, which we definitely not want to do, and then we will need to keep on going with the old architecture until everyone migrates.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is part one. And so we are actively encouraging people to migrate. We are recording videos of how to migrate. We're putting it on our website. We're working closely with Stacks Foundation, explaining what and how you should do. And we're telling you, please do that. I'm begging you as a founder, please do that.
This sounds like the Brandon and I often talk about like the quantum resistant threats that are coming to Bitcoin. Yeah. And, just like how people are encouraged to, move their Bitcoin to safer addresses, stop reusing addresses and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you can't just take people's funds. You can't just like change the protocol. That's the whole point of Bitcoin, of DeFi is, it's your money. So yeah, it just reminded me of these conversations that we're having. Well, we only have one more question left. So to wrap things up, we'd love to just hear your honest take on where you think Bitcoin DeFi is heading.
Well, I think that it is migrating from, as I said, experiment into a new market structure. So, first of all, what problem we are trying to solve is that a lot of people are just sitting with their Bitcoins on hand, not really doing anything with the Bitcoin. Apart from that Bitcoin that it is being transferred to, for example, EVM chains in the form of wrapped Bitcoin. Now, I don't think that this is healthy for Bitcoin ecosystem. I think it would be better, to stay on the Bitcoin side rather than to delegate all the Bitcoin DeFi to other guys. So I see that the market is growing, and now that we have this integration up and running on stacks, it would be growing. Second, I think that Bitcoin DeFi would not be exotic DeFi in a sense that it would be pretty much traditional thing with borrowing, lending, with walls, with yield strategies. So we are not really expecting, on my side, to see anything different in terms of business logic from happening. And this is the idea here. It is to preserve how people are already, knowledgeable of how to operate on DeFi markets and just give them extra tool to do that bound to Bitcoin ecosystem rather than reinventing the wheel and creating some things that would be specific to Bitcoin only. I think it is healthier. I think that brings more attention. I think that brings more people into ecosystem, and everyone wins from that. Then I don't see any losers here in Bitcoin ecosystem. I can potentially see the losers from outer space that would see money outflowing back to where it came from, to Bitcoin. But I don't think that in this scenario we should really care about them, right? What else? Maybe, I don't know, maybe some interesting things like perp dexes would be cool to see. Some stablecoin settlements related to, for example, card payments would also be interesting to see, because I see even within the crowd, I mean, a lot of people are trying to live their life as crypto guys, but at the same time they need to spend the money, and they would prefer to spend the money through the cards in form of stables rather than in the original asset. That would be an interesting use case too. Maybe we'll see some things related to treasury management. And last but not least, what interests me personally the most, we will see some cross-chain yield arbitrage opportunities now more than before. So while I think that it is better that the money, for you guys, that the money just goes to you and stays there and TVL is growing, we would eventually see the flow of transaction in and out, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because money movement is what makes money system healthy itself. So this is sort of my vision on this. You may agree with me, may not. It's up to you.
No, I think that's very well said and some pretty good insight. Yeah. Brandon, do you have any other further questions?
I'm just going to say core.allbridge.io is the website to go to, swap stablecoins. I counted, I think 17 is where we're currently at with the addition of stacks on core. Pretty awesome. Anywhere else that we should send folks to learn more about Allbridge?
I think that we've got a nice link, docs-core at Allbridge.io, which explains everything related to our security audits, everything related to how the breach works, to mathematic formulas we have underneath. For some folks, maybe it would be interesting to learn that we sometimes can have this thing that we call positive slippage. So that when the money is actively moving one direction, we're paying people to move the money the other direction for the reason that we are non-custodials, we cannot touch user funds, but instead we can write mathematical logic so that other people can take their funds deposited on exchange, withdraw from exchange, and then revert the transaction and earn some money here. We have quite an activity around that. Also, I wanted to add that one of the cool things why I think people may want to use Allbridge Core for transferring money in and out of stacks, that it is that we do support cross-chain, cross-stablecoins transfers. So imagine that you're sitting in eastern part of the world and you're actively using some OTC desks to get in and out of crypto. that means that probably you would end out with USDT tier C20 on your hands. And I see a lot of people who are just using this specific asset and not anything else because they don't know how to migrate. And now you can transfer USDT tier C20 into USDC on Stacks, and then you can get into one of the cool protocols on Stacks and, for example, invest your money there and play with it around. And if you want, in the end of the day, you can return back to the original asset. We are not prohibiting Ethereum to do that. So the idea around that integration is that we're trying to give people more possibilities, and then people decide what to do with those possibilities.
Amazing. All right. Well, that is all of our questions today. Thank you so much for joining us. I think people are really going to enjoy this episode, and I hope they migrate their AEUSDC. Please, yeah. All right, Andriy, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will talk.
Kate, when Kate stepped away, and then I was commenting on how cool his polo is.
I know. I like this. Very good. Very cool. All right, you guys. Take care. We'll see you later.
Thank you so much. Real pleasure. Really nice. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.